James, in the climate we live in, we've had to do a lot of things differently. So everyone in this room is masked except for us, and just to show everyone that we are 6 feet apart, but we want to, probably 6.5. He's got longer arms than I do. James Hall is our inaugural interview for something we really wanted to do with Texas Health Huguley. As Black Lives Matter unfolded, we wanted to try to understand, how do we just seek to learn more? One of the ways that we're going to do this in 2020 is by featuring different people who have had interesting life experiences that maybe some of us wouldn't have expected. James has started with that. In 2020, we'll be focusing on people from the Black or African American communities. And then in 2021, we want to expand it to other diverse groups that have maybe just had really unique experiences that we can all learn from. So I want to thank James for being brave enough to be our first person.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I think, I struggle with is the word Black. When I was growing up, there were lots of different words, some good, some bad. Then we kind of morphed to African American. And to be honest, I just think sometimes we're confused. I don't know what the right thing to do is, and I want to do the right thing. So how do I know what the right thing is?
I can speak for me personally. I don't mind Black or African American. I have African roots. I am an American, so nothing about either of those is offensive to me. However, there are other people who have a preference, and I'm sure they have their own reasons for it. So most people, I think, prefer Black.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to start the conversation.
Well, first of all, you being you was, it made it easier for me to discuss things with you. You've always been very candid with me. If you have a question, you ask. And I think I have the kind of relationship with you. We can discuss most things in a mature, intelligent way. I think you need to continue to be inquisitive, be sincere, be genuine, and an openness to learn is how I think you should approach it.
Recently, when we did the White Coats for Black Lives Matter, as we started talking, I was like, wow, I don't think people know all this about James. And I think people know James the traveler, James the leader of our pharmacy, James one of the leaders of our hospital, James the always incredibly well-dressed person. But they don't know a lot about your story. And when we look around at what's going on in our country, I think learning people's stories is what really opens people's eyes.
I grew up in the segregated South. That in itself was a challenge.
So we're at in the South?
Louisiana, North Louisiana, near Shreveport. My town was so small, I'll have to say near Shreveport, just for reference there. But it was a town of about 4,000 people. My class was the first to integrate. I was scared, confused, and didn't know what the meaning of that was going to be for me. I know what I had been exposed to already, and so to be put in that environment where I didn't have a choice it was very frightening for me. When my mom would take us to the doctors, our fees were not reduced, but we had to go into a colored entrance of the doctor's clinic. So that was just really interesting to me, and as a child, I didn't understand it. I can't even imagine that happening now. So we've really, really come a long way, and anybody that I describe that to right now would know that that was wrong. But it was okay for the time.
Right.
That's one of the reasons I say we've evolved a lot, and I don't want to see us lose that momentum.
So James, I want to bring up a topic that's really polarizing in our country right now, and it's the whole Black Lives Matter statement, or hashtag BLM. And I've seen on social media people say, well, don't use that because you're not using it right, or all lives matter, white lives matter, blue lives matter, it's all over. And so how do I support that and understand that it doesn't diminish my life?
If it comes from my mouth, I'm not saying I matter more than anybody else, but I certainly don't matter less.
Yeah.
And I think that's the takeaway message. We all matter. but it's also a little bit insulting if I were to bring up the topic and then somebody says blue lives matter, these lives matter, and so you're missing the point, I think. Mm-hmm. We know blue lives matter already. So you're trying to state a position, you're trying to level the playing field by that topic or that phrase. It's not meant to be offensive. And that's what I feel about it personally. History tells us that hasn't been embraced. That's why we're here right now.
This is not new. There have been other races that have been spotlighted over our time. Maybe they didn't have their own hashtag then. And so I think that's what we're talking about now, is maybe it's just the time to look at Black lives and what their walk has been. And I think when you think about that in context, it makes me understand no one's saying my life is just as important.
So, exactly. And I think the majority of the public is open to that, learning
Absolutely.
what that means.
Mm-hmm.
You know, teach me, I'm open to it, I'm listening. So that's a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, whether it's in media or even as we've been talking about from a company perspective, is like, let's have the conversation. But it's not easy for everyone to start the conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So what, I don't know, tips or tricks, or how do you start a conversation and not be offensive to someone?
You know, I think the conversation has already begun, and I'm very, very happy about that. That lets me know that I'm at the right place. This feels like home, and leadership has set the tone here. You know, not under duress, but because it was the right thing to do. You're taking the initiative to move the conversation forward. That takes a lot of chutzpah, and so I'm happy to see it.
Wow.
Because I feel like as a Christian organization, if not us, then who? Mm-hmm. And if not now, then when? You know, we can't be afraid of this conversation. It's here. It's in our faces. And it's complex because we have all of these other issues layered on top of it. You know, we've got COVID-19, we've got the political discourse we're having. There's lots of opportunities to hate. So to see love and to see so many people going out of their way to do the right thing without any hesitation, that says a lot about our country. We've come a long way in terms of racial relationships. I'm a little disappointed. It seems like we've kind of lost our stride. At times I feel like we're 50 years back to where we were, and we kind of lost the momentum in a way. But there's a huge opportunity now to take this and move it forward. And I think change is coming. It's upon us. I think it's going to evolve, and I see a great outcome. That's what I hope for. The one thing that there's always a risk of is it can be the topic of the week, and then we're done, and then it doesn't come up again. I haven't seen that happen, and so that's refreshing.
So what are you and your friends talking about, or what would you tell me as your friend, not the CEO, that hey, here's something to think about differently when you wake up in the morning?
It's not about party. It's not about what affiliation you have. It's about right versus wrong and treating your fellow man with human dignity. That's what it all boils down to. So.
Wow, that's so well said. Thank you so much, James.
My pleasure.